Beyond the House Edge. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Forensic Disclosure. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on one of the most sophisticated, mathematically shielded systems of wealth extraction in the modern world. We are going far beyond the classic talking points of the casino industry. We are going beyond the House Edge. We are exposing the casino industry's systematic early extinction of players and their bankrolls. Our aim is to define the forensic case against casino gaslighting. The illusion of the level playing field. For decades, the public has been fed a very specific, carefully curated narrative. The house always wins, but it wins fairly. We are told the casinos don't need to cheat because the math of the house edge, whether it's the 2.70% margin in European roulette or the slim percentages in blackjack, guarantees their profitability over the long run. We are taught to view our losing streaks as the simple, neutral results of standard variance and bad luck. But what if that narrative is actually a meticulously engineered alibi? What if the actual real-world data of player survival does not match the clean, certified mathematical models that casinos use to get their licenses? Today we are analyzing a groundbreaking piece of forensic research, exposing systematic extinction. We are going to break down this investigation into 4 distinct acts, exposing how modern casinos leverage the illusion of variance to hide systematic early bankroll extinction, and how they deploy a psychological diversion known as casino gaslighting to silence anyone who dares to look at the logs. Part 1, the alibi, defines the status quo of the global gaming industry. When you walk onto a casino floor, or when you log into an online gaming portal, you are entering an environment that operates under a strict public narrative. The gaming industry attributes all player losses to a gradual, predictable mathematical depletion. In European roulette, for example, that disadvantage is set at exactly a 2.70% house edge. The public narrative positions 1. Volatile outcomes, 2. Massive downswings, 3. Prolonged losing streaks, and 4. Rapid bankroll depletion, as the inevitable natural byproducts of random probability and standard variance. If you lose your entire bankroll in a matter of minutes, the industry's response is simple. That's just variance. That's randomness. Sometimes the balls cluster on black. Sometimes they cluster on red. Over millions of spins, it all evens out to that 2.70% edge. This is the perfect alibi. Why? Because it positions the casino as a completely passive, neutral observer. In this narrative, the casino isn't doing anything to you. They are simply hosting a neutral outcome environment. To cement this alibi, operators utilize 2 primary shields. Firstly, the theoretical edge, which is defined as the mathematical expectation built into the game's rules. Secondly, initial game certification, which is the seal of approval from third-party testing laboratories that all casinos are required to have. When a regulator or a forensic auditor questions why players are losing so rapidly, the operator points to their initial certification. They say, look, our software and our physical wheels were tested and certified by an accredited lab before we launched. Our game is random, and the math is fair. The industry uses this initial certification as a blanket shield against all live, ongoing forensic scrutiny. Once a game is certified, the casino treats it as an unassailable black box. They argue that because the game was certified at inception, any subsequent real-world deviation must be a statistical anomaly or player delusion. But as we are about to see, initial certification is a historical snapshot. It is not a guarantee of ongoing, live operational integrity. Part 2, the mathematical anomaly, the core conflict, where the public narrative collides head-on with cold, hard probability. This is the core conflict of our investigation. To understand the anomaly, we have to look at the actual mathematics of bankroll survival. Let's establish a strict, controlled mathematical baseline. Suppose we have a player who walks into a European roulette game with a 10-unit bankroll. They are playing a flat betting strategy, meaning they bet exactly 1 unit per spin on an even money option, like red or black or odd or even. At a standard 2.70% house edge, probability theory dictates a highly defined, mathematically immutable survival curve. This curve tells us exactly how long a group of players should survive before their 10-unit bankroll is completely depleted. Now let's look at the specific mathematical mandate of this curve. Probability theory dictates that exactly 24.31% of players must survive at least 370 spins. Let's pause and digest that number. This isn't a guess. It is an absolute mathematical requirement of a 2.70% house edge under flat betting with a 10-unit bankroll. If you have 10 players flat betting a 10-unit bankroll, nearly a quarter of them, 24.31%, must still have chips in their hand after 370 spins. Let's translate 370 spins into physical time. In a live, physical casino, where a physical roulette wheel is spun, bets are placed, and chips are sorted, a standard game runs at roughly 20 spins per hour. Therefore, 370 spins equates to approximately 18.5 hours of continuous live physical play. In an online casino, where the software runs instantly, a player can easily complete 370 spins in about 4 hours of online play. Whether it takes 18.5 hours in a physical casino or 4 hours online, the mathematical law remains the same. 24.31% of players must survive to this point. This survival group represents what mathematicians call the long survival tail of the probability distribution. But here is where the anomaly lies. When forensic auditors analyze real-world operational data from modern casinos, they discover a staggering discrepancy. This expected long survival tail has completely disappeared. Instead of 24.31% of players surviving 370 spins, the real-world data shows a truncated curve. The survival rate collapses. Players are wiped out at a rate that is mathematically impossible under a neutral 2.70% house edge model. This is not a minor statistical wobble. The widespread disappearance of this survivor group fundamentally invalidates the public explanation of random variance. The failure of the expected variation model points directly to one conclusion. Players are not experiencing a gradual, natural mathematical depletion. They are experiencing systematic early bankroll extinction. The system is executing accelerated wipeouts, compressing the survival curve and cutting off the long tail of player survival. Part 3. The diversion. The execution. So what happens when players start to notice this? What happens when they realize that their bankrolls are disappearing far faster than standard math would suggest? This brings us to the diversion, which is the tactical execution of what forensic researchers call casino gaslighting. When observed, real-world outcomes deviate wildly from certified probability. Operators do not investigate their systems. Instead, they deploy a psychological diversion. They convert an evidentiary question about system integrity into a psychological accusation against the player. Think about how this works in practice. A player notices that they are experiencing an unprecedented, highly clustered series of losing outcomes. They observe suppressed recovery events, meaning the natural wins that should occasionally occur to sustain their play are being systematically withheld. They notice that adverse sequences are clustering together in ways that defy the odds. If the player flags this, the operator's apparatus swings into action. They bury these valid observations under pathologizing labels. They tell the player, "You are just experiencing cognitive bias. You are chasing your losses. You must have escalated your bets." This is classic problem gambling behavior. By labeling the player's analytical observations as a psychological defect, the operator successfully shifts the burden of proof entirely onto the player. The player is forced to defend their own sanity and behavioral patterns, while the operator's server environment remains completely shielded from scrutiny. This is a classic gaslighting technique. The player is locked out of the server. They have absolutely no access to the raw data, the random number generator, RNG logs, or the sequence generation code. They cannot prove that the system is rigged because they do not have the data. Meanwhile, the operator uses the player's lack of data and their psychological pathologization as a shield to protect their engineered system from forensic audit. Behave this system. Part 4. The mandate. The resolution. How do we break this cycle? How do we move past the diversion? The mandate outlines the essential path to resolution. The core realization of this act is simple. Initial game certification is not a substitute for a live forensic audit. Just because a software system or a physical machine was certified in a laboratory 5 years ago, or even 1 year ago, does not mean it is operating fairly in the live environment today. Because the house edge does not eliminate all players at the same speed, the complete and systematic disappearance of survivors, the collapse of that 24.31% survival tail, fundamentally invalidates the public explanation. Therefore, the burden of proof must shift. We must stop letting operators shift the burden onto player psychology. The burden of proof belongs on the institution's data. In any other regulated financial industry, trust is not an acceptable standard. If a bank's transactions do not match their public ledger, the regulator does not say, "Well, we trust you, and your software was certified 3 years ago, so everything must be fine." They perform an immediate live forensic audit of the transaction logs. The gaming industry must be held to the exact same evidentiary standard. Trust is not an evidentiary standard. To achieve real resolution, we must enforce a strict, required disclosure mandate. Casinos must be forced to open their black boxes and disclose live RNG records, the raw, unedited outputs of the random number generators, full round-by-round outcome logs, every single bet placed, every sequence generated, and the corresponding player bankroll states. System exception reports, the logs that show when the system encountered errors, resets, or recalibrations. Only by analyzing this raw, live operational data can forensic investigators verify whether the systems are actually operating within the boundaries of certified probability, or if they are actively engineering early extinction. The diagnostic matrix. The survival discrepancy. To summarize the entire conflict, let's look at what we mean by that. This matrix pits the industry's public model against the forensic reality of the observed data. Under the public model, or what could be seen as an expected loss model, the environment is defined by gradual depletion. The player's bankroll decays slowly, eroded gently by the 2.70% edge. Predictable survival tails. A healthy, mathematically mandated group of survivors, like our 24.31%, persist over long periods, 370-plus spins. Neutral outcome environments. The system is entirely passive, random, and blind to the individual player's bankroll state. But under the observed data from real casino play, we see a completely different environment. We see accelerated wipeouts where players are drained of their capital with unprecedented speed. We see truncated survival curves, where the long survival tail is aggressively cut short and mostly non-existent, meaning almost no players survive to the 370 spin mark. We see engineered sequence depletion, and note that the outcomes are not neutral. Instead, sequences are clustered to deny recovery events and guarantee bankroll destruction. In conclusion, we confirm US show the logs. Finally, the ultimate takeaway of this forensic investigation is that losing money at a casino is a known risk. If you play roulette, you expect to lose over time. That is what we call expected loss. It is a normal, mathematically understood cost of play. Expected loss is normal. Systematic early extinction is not. When casinos use the alibi of variance to hide engineered wipeouts, and when they use psychological gaslighting to silence the players who notice and question the discrepancy, they are violating the fundamental contract of fair play. The solution is simple, direct, and unassailable. We do not need to debate psychology, and we do not need to argue about cognitive bias. Players just need to see the data. To every casino operator, to every regulator, and to every licensing body, the mandate is clear. Show the players the logs. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Forensic Disclosure of Casino Gaming. Please join us again as we continue our forensic investigation into the hidden mechanics of modern gaming systems. Until then, keep analyzing, keep questioning, and never stop demanding the data.